Good morning and welcome to today's Talking Cafe. My name, as you all know by now, is Wendy Rudd, and in today's Talking Cafe I'm going to be joined by Jack, who is a specialist in hoarding. And as usual, to start the ball rolling, I've got a poem to sum up roughly what we're going to be talking about today. So, hoarding. Is your client a hoarder? House in a state of disorder? Support and help is out there. We have the answer, so don't despair. Respect my stuff, your staff can train. We work to a model, so let us explain. Is the problem no space to move? Indoor pathways, just a groove? If practical help is all that you need, we can also offer you that indeed. A one-stop service within a time frame, getting rid of stuff, now let us explain. Cleaning can also be done. Whatever your needs, they can be taken on. A hoarding support group that's user-led to keep a clean house and keep a clear head. That's our latest and newest project. So come along, join in and accept. So contact Dehoarding Southwest CIC and let our team be all we can be. So come along and don't delay. Contact us now, yes, even today. And that brings us nicely to say, hello, Jack.
Hello, Wendy.
And I shall let you introduce yourself.
Okay, Wendy. So my name's Jack Moore. Been training and offering consultancy on hoarding and other areas of mental health as well, mental illness, but mainly hoarding for at least 10 years now. And so I've got, there's two elements to the work I do. There's the training and consultancy, but also in the Southwest now, only recently, we started the Hoarding Southwest CIC, which is a community interest company. And that is where we offer this one-stop shop where we actually, because other agencies, maybe housing, social services, etc., don't have the staffing levels to deal properly and spend the right time with the person who's hoarding, we offer that right through from literally start to finish. So that's roughly what we do.
Okay, so if we start with the Respect My Stuff, the training and consultancy. How long have you been going, and who would be your clients? Who would you?
So Respect My Stuff. So I left housing 16 years ago. 14, 15 years, 16 years ago, 2006, whatever, I can't remember what the maths is, but 15 years ago. So I left, before that, had a career in housing and social housing, and did a degree, and actually decided that I wanted to take a couple of years out, so started training, and that time was training very much around disability, which I had a very keen interest in that. And that sort of led to dealing, with mental illness, and really just, so my clients then were very much housing associations, local authorities. And then when I started specializing in hoarding, which always intrigued me, even going back, 20, 30 years, dealing with people who were hoarding, I just found it a really intriguing subject. And some I dealt with very well, some not very well, because there was no real training, there was no real understanding. And it was very much up to the individual housing officer or social worker or whoever, how they actually dealt with that. So I decided to do a lot of research. A lot of that was from American research, Australian research, and just as much as we had in the UK as well, to find out the best ways to actually understand why someone hoards, get down to the, what used to happen in housing was people would go in and do what we call a forced clear out. They would say, look, if you don't clear this out, you'll get in trouble, we'll do enforcement. Or they would go and get an injunction, and a judge would say, yep, you can go in and clear it out. That's one thing, clear start, and but it's very short term. It keeps the place maybe tidy for a week or two. But that person, because you haven't dealt with inside, you haven't dealt with the reason why, the sort of the trauma they've gone through, whatever it is, and they will just do it again. Invariably, they will do it again. So I tried to look at how we could work sort of and start looking and putting together a model that would actually work, which is taking longer to deal, to work with the individual, to build a rapport, to try and find out, to start clearing areas, to start making the place safe, fire safe, avalanche safe, fire and rescue safe, and then usually start dealing with maybe some stuff has to go. There's too much volume, so we use so that sort of made me move then from the old style of training I did into specialist training around hoarding, which is where respect my stuff. The reason I call it respect my stuff is that most of the people that I've come across, and that's hundreds who hoard, they will call their stuff their stuff. Well, so we their things or their possessions, but stuff comes up. So I just call it respect my stuff, and it's fairly well stuck. And you asked then, going back, Wendy, who my clients are, it would be housing associations, local authorities, councils, social workers, environmental health officers, fire and rescue. They'd be they would be my main sort of people who I train up into how to deal with hoarding. And they've been doing that for years in the whole of the UK and Republic of Ireland. The problem is that's come up more recently is that housing providers in particular, and social workers and environmental, they don't have the time, because we need to be in with them every week over a period of months, not weeks, not a few days, months, to actually deal with them with a sort of structured time frame depending on the individual. And that's why in the Southwest we've started up the Hoarding Southwest, a community interest company, where I train a team, and the team are trained up by me with the model that we use to go in as in couples. Two of them will go in. It's always two, at least two, will go in and build rapport, and work with them. Try and find out through the training why that person is hoarding, or is it hoarding, or is it extreme clutter? They can look the same, but actually one may be a mental illness called hoarding disorder, but the other may be it's just built up through depression, through ill health, because of bipolar disorder. Such an interesting area, such an interesting topic, and so that's what we're doing. So we go in and we actually take referrals at the minute from housing. We're hoping to get now into sort of the NHS side, the social work side, environmental health, and others in and around Somerset, hopefully North Devon as well, Dorset, other areas. Right. So anything?
So basically, you happened upon this. Really, you looked for information, and you then progressed. So you're probably one of the forerunners, because I can remember when it became the first time a series on the TV, even, and when you say hoarding to the majority of people, they think cluttered house. When they then started the TV programs, you realize that, hang on, this really is such a big problem. So your niche was to find solutions to a problem that was here. As you say, it goes further than just collecting stuff. Dehoarding Southwest CIC, which is where we come in as Somerset, is going to be, especially for us, useful, because the support is there, even though it's coming through, the referrals are coming through from agencies. You're able to now be on the ball, and one, we can get advice from yourself, and two, hopefully you're going to be hands-on and motivating.
Yeah, well, we are already. That's where sort of we're getting. So there's two elements to it. We're getting in there already. We're well into our referrals now, so we're keeping busy, very busy, and just interesting. Just going back to the TV programs, I don't watch them. I just simply don't watch them. And I never have, simply because I find them quite cruel. I find them quite, and that's one of the reasons why, because what happens when the television program and the directors and the cameras leave. What. And in fact, I raised this at a conference a few years back, and someone contacted me from a production company to see if I wanted to make a program myself about going back to a place that had been dealt with and see what happens, because I know for most of them that there may be a bit of sort of relapse prevention visits, but actually it would stop then, and because the production companies wouldn't be interested. So yeah, it was just an interesting one. But so with Hoarding Southwest CIC, it is even though now we have to charge through the referral system. What we're hoping to do, because it's a community interest company, is to have the at some stage surplus, so that for people, there are other people who aren't in social housing, who maybe either they may own their own property outright, but they've got no disposable income, and they've got no recourse, no funding, so we're hoping that for people who simply cannot afford and haven't got others to help them, then we can offer a greatly subsidized cost for them also.
So then, yes, which is where obviously again, as village agents, we identify an awful lot of people that are out there. That, I mean, you said you when we had a conversation the other day, because we sort of had a quick chat, you said about the levels of hoarding and how it's graded. Would you like to clarify more on that?
Yeah, we use I remember years ago when I started doing this, maybe 10 even more years ago, and I mean wasting like a fortnight of my life trying to put together a sort of like a base measure of how serious or not a particular hoarder or extreme clutter is. And it was all sort of through descriptors. And having worked in housing and know how housing work, I thought they need to be more simple, a bit easier than that. And then found in the some of the farm rescue areas around the country were using these. It's called the clutter image rating, and it's International OCD, Obsessive Compulsive Disorder Foundation. So and they did it years ago, and it is so easy, and it's on a scale of 1 to 9. You get 3, 3, 3, 1 to 9, with 1 being fine, 9 being an extreme hoard or extreme clutter. And so really when we're looking at hoard, sort of where a procedure might kick in, it would be some number 4 upwards. So the referrals that we're dealing with at the minute in the Southwest, in Somerset, would be anything from 6 to 9. So that's when it's getting fairly serious stuff. And so we use that, but our aim at my model, and also to Hoarding Southwest CIC, is that our aim is to get to as close as level 3 as we can, which is acceptable. It's not all spick and span beautiful and all. It is acceptable. It removes the tripping, it removes the avalanche fear, it removes and actually what we find, and I've been doing this for years, remember, is that in many cases we get to a level 3, and then the person themselves, even though we sort of pull back, the people themselves get to level 2 and possibly even level 1 themselves, because we've taken so much off their shoulders, and they have a different life and a different outlook on life. The thing about hoarding is that when someone is hoarding, they don't want you in the property. They even though they may mask it by being quite abrupt and quite, I'm fine, I don't need you, they invariably are embarrassed and ashamed. And that usually doesn't come out until much later in the process, once you really build a rapport with them. But shame, embarrassment, their dignity's gone. And sometimes it can be extreme stuff. Now we are talking about, even where they've this guilt about waste, they can't even get rid of their own human waste. And so you can imagine. So when I'm doing training to my team, is making sure that they're always, no matter how maybe even aggressive someone comes over, just try and put yourself in their shoes. Think something awful has happened for them to get there. Could be bereavement, could be a mental illness, could be a loss of a job, could be, even thinking now, going through, sort of what's happening with the whole coronavirus and the furlough and people actually losing jobs. That can be enough to actually tip someone over into having a massive void and having to fill it. So it's just, yeah, I could talk all day on it, as you can gather when you say something.
Well, I can listen all day because I, like you, I find it fascinating, and as you say, how it happens. And the one thing that you were saying that you do a person-centered. You don't just go in and clear a house. You work with that person. You stay with them, don't you? Do you want to tell us a bit more of how that works? And
so for the average, I can only, because every person hoarding is different. Everyone is. There are no two that are alike. So it takes a while to find out and build that rapport. So once we get in and find out, what makes them tick, why it is. We usually, for the average person hoarding, if it is a mental illness, a hoarding disorder, or if there's a particular attachment to the stuff in the property, then we don't do anything about getting rid of anything, or even talking about getting rid of anything for weeks, sometimes even months, because we have to get in there, into that person, into the sort of the head of that person, as to why it is they can't let go of things, why it is that they're so attached. So what we'll do is our first thing is we'll go in, and it's to make the place safe. Usually there's a fire hazard, and that's the first thing that we're looking at, is safety. And if there was a fire, could fire and rescue get in to actually get in safely and get out? Sometimes fire and rescue will, in extreme hordes, they will say, we will only fight the fire from the outside. We will not come in because it's so bad. So we need to, and it's amazing when, especially when, sort of it's chaotic, when stuff has just been over possibly years has built up, and we end up with stuff. Once you start tidying stuff up into nice sort of piles, nice into sort of area, not just sort of begin to sort them out. You clear up a lot of space. You make sort of, and even then, even when people see a bit of floor or a bit of table or a bit of wood they haven't seen for maybe months, years, that can be quite invigorating for them. So we do that. We also set them, so we look at, on average, 2.5 to 3 hours a week with them. We try and get it in one, so we're with them. There's not just one of these, sort of like a maybe floating support where you might go in for half an hour or something. It's no good. You have to go in, and we tell them there's going to be 2 of us coming in, and we will work with you. We're going to work with you. We're not doing it all ourselves. We will be setting little tasks for you, little sort of actions for you every week, so that you take a little bit of responsibility and ownership yourself as well, and that really does help. It really does help. And there's so much more I could talk about. One of the main things is, the first thing we get agreement of, no matter why the hoard or why the extreme clutter, is that they agree that if they're going to have us in, they pledge, and I sometimes get them to even literally just write it themselves, that we won't bring anything new in during the time we're working with them. So if someone is at number 7 in the clutter image rating, you've stopped it. They can't go to 8 or 9. We're not making any better yet, but they can't go any further. So those little things. I don't want to give you away all my sort of training tips and all my sort of how we do things, but it works. It works.
As I say, I could sit and listen to you all day. As I say, it's absolutely fascinating. So just trying to think. in the next few months, you're going to start a hoarding support group, which takes us nicely onto that, because you've trained agencies and people so they can handle it. You then go in and you're supporting and helping people.
Yeah.
Now, my understanding is you're now going to start the hoarding support group.
Yeah.
Where, like most people, you do feel terribly isolated when there is something that's not the norm. And it is so nice to find people like-minded, people that have had that experience that you've had. And that's your next step, I understand. You're on the verge of.
Yeah, well, on the verge off for the Southwest. I've done it in loads of other areas and in Ireland as well. We start up little support groups. I haven't started. I've facilitated and given them the model, as to how to do it. And really, what it is of the scores, in fact, hundreds of people that I've dealt with, known directly, indirectly over the years, who hoard. The majority are, I would say, not even of average intelligence. They're smart. They're quite often really well-read, smart people. Just something awful has happened along the line. And these people, when we get them towards that level 3 and they start seeing and they start getting back to, sort of a quality of life that they haven't had maybe for months, years, usually, they're usually good fun as well. We can have good sort of laugh at them as well. But they've got something to give. So what we try and do is encourage them that when they're getting and they're really sort of progressing, is say to them, look, if we hold it in sort of a cafe once a month, once every 6 weeks or whatever, in, I don't know, Taunton, Yeovil or whatever, or just talking to Landport, maybe something like that, we'll do teas and coffees and a few bickies and whatever, would you come along? And because we're also going to invite people who are newly hoarding, who are, or quite often their family members or friends who just don't get it, they don't understand it. And so we'll go sort of facilitate, but get them to do the talking. It's the whole thing around mental illness. It's good to talk. And I think that's really, as I say, with like-minded also.
So on these support groups as well, you're saying family members can come in and they can get more understanding as to how to cope.
Quite often the family members are, they find it very depressing, very upsetting, and they tend to, for the majority of people hoarding, they don't have family members popping into the house. They'll say, oh, we'll meet you in the cafe around the corner, every Friday morning for a coffee or whatever, a catch up. They won't go into the property. They won't. So, and they just don't get it. And sort of out of sight, out of mind. So they don't. That's one of the reasons why they, or maybe a good friend or whatever, could come along, someone, and we can sort of explain to them the psychology around hoarding, the sort of the history of it, the psychology of it, and just the sort of tips on what we can do. And also, I think it's really good to have someone who has been hoarding and is now at that sort of level 3 or above, to be able to say, look, I was there, and I never thought I'd get out of it. And I've been at these sessions where it ended up being quite tearful, but actually in a nice way, in a very positive way. Also.
Yeah, in an emotional, I can imagine, as you say, because hearing it from somebody that has experience, it's like anything that's true life, it impacts far greater on a person, doesn't it? And I think possibly as well, they're able to, because they've been there and they felt it. And you say your offices are based in Ash Hill, which is really nicely centred, isn't it, for the South?
It is. It's so handy. It really is. So, you've got the A358, you've got the 303, you've got the M5. It's ideal there, I have to say. But that's not to say we just cover that area, Taunton. We are literally, getting wider and wider. The office is only used really for admin and the odd meeting. We're not sort of office centered. So we have, like, I'm hoping to have a team maybe in Exeter, that will cover that sort of, sort of extra and the sort of North Devon sort of area. And other teams, maybe, North Somerset. So just at the minute, we're just sort of centred around Ash Hill, but it'll hopefully get a lot wider than that. Another thing I wanted to add, Wendy, was that when we set up, and actually it was quite handy during the lockdown, what I realised, and one of the things we're going to do was, so remember I said earlier that we go in, we work with the person, with a team, 2 people go in and build rapport, and then usually what happens, because in some cases it might be the other way around, but it usually gets to the stage where maybe a couple of months into the sort of the process, the people will start to let go of things. They think, you know what, you're right, I don't need these. Let's clear this whole thing out. Now, and this, we can be talking of tons of stuff. I mean, tons of stuff. I've done 2-bedroom houses with 6 tons of stuff coming out of it, of whatever you want to call it, items, etc. And what we were going to do was subcontract that to a clearance company, man in a van or whatever, or that sort of clearance thing. The problem is, and again from experience, is all over the country, is that some people do this and then subcontract, and that rapport is lost because people come in, they don't, maybe the clearance side don't understand hoarding, they don't understand there may be other, or will be possibly other mental illnesses there as well, and other sort of reasons, around it, and they muck it up, and the person then shuts the door. So what I've done is bought a 3.5-ton tipper. We haven't put any signage on it, just a white tipper, and we have clearance operatives as well, trained by me. Again, the whole understanding around mental illness, around hoarding, around empathy, understanding, etc. And so when we need stuff cleared, not small amount, big amount, they are then, but they're part of our team also. So it's a continuum. It's not, we're not giving it out to anyone else. So we've got that. I'm just going to add in here as well, if any of your listeners there are because that when that tipper truck isn't being used for hoarding cases, it's not doing anything. I would rather we and they can they can make use of it. So there's obviously the charge, we have to get the money back on them somehow or other, but it'll be so they can have 2, possibly even 3 people with a tipper truck. And if it's for their own sort of non-hoarding, could be clearance, could be anything like that, but just contact me and we can sort something out. So long as it's legal, I don't mind what it's used for.
So that's actually, so I love it because you're continuing the understanding of the client, as you say. If you're going in and you're doing you've got your own people that are trained, and then, as you say, you can keep that, do you call it empathy? You can keep that understanding and support.
Yeah.
So that you're not, that's right, you're not impacting on their mental health and making things worse.
That's right. That's right.
And we've got a question come up. Can family and friends contact you for help, or does it have to come through the professionals?
No, not at all. Right. No, it doesn't have to come through the professionals. People can, and I do have on a regular basis, people will contact me because they don't have maybe access to, or they haven't maybe just gone down that route of going to social services or others. So, absolutely. The reason that I've mentioned housing is my background. Social housing it's a bit easier in that there is a tenancy agreement, so there's usually a sort of a bit of leverage there for the person hoarding, that they have, it's not that they've got no choice, but there's something. Whereas for others in maybe private or where their family members don't want to get social, I can understand if they don't want to get other people involved, then absolutely, just come to us direct.
Yeah, I know for us, one of our main concerns when we're going in is, as you say, we take the health and safety angle, because of course, as you say, the risk if there's a fire, they can't get out. As you say, and if you're wanting, somebody needs a microenvironment because they've been in hospital and looking for discharge, and we have the problems there. So yes, as you say, getting that support and having people that we can go to, and hopefully, as you say,
yeah,
it's going to make a big difference, I think, and it is wonderful that you're now in the area and all of this support.
No, we're just ready. We're ready just to get and actually, and if any of your listeners are interested, I am and I will be looking for more de-hoarding practitioners who will be again trained up, and usually we find they come from and this is where I've sort of introduced them around the country as well, is they're usually from maybe a sort of floating support background, or maybe if they've had sort of maybe worked with people with learning disabilities, or maybe with mental health, but if they don't have to, so long as it's sort of someone with empathy, understanding. And it really is, and I'm talking, there's manual handling, there's hiking stuff around, there's and there can be filth also, not in every case, but there can be. So we can't have anyone who is a bit worried about getting their hands dirty. So it has to be people more than happy to get their hands dirty, and it is very satisfying. Certainly the people who've got working on the team now, they really enjoy it, and they really take to the people who can be quite difficult as well to start off with, but they so it's a special person that can actually deal with it. But certainly I'll be looking for more, around the county, around Somerset and into North Devon and other areas as well.
So I think we've put out there sort of, we've covered the base things, we've covered everything that you're about, and people, viewers that are watching, have any questions, to put them in the comments box. However, this does tend to normally happen after we've gone live, due to the timings, but it is monitored, and anything that comes through we will get over to you, or we will answer what we can. And I think possibly what it would be good to put at the end of the comments is, if you want to give out contact details, email addresses, any phone numbers, and get them up on there so that people know where to go, where to look.
Yeah. So how do I do that?
You just speak it now, and by magic, Dave, who's sitting in the background, our helper, he will actually put it into the comments for you. So your email address is?
So email is, best is going to be jack@respectmystuff, all one word, .org.uk.
And the contact telephone number?
Mobile is 07919 937 030.
Right, and I'm sure Dave will pop that for us presently. As I say, I know he's having problems with his internet today, because he's already dropped out on us several times. I can see when he's in the background.
Oh, right.
There we go. Oh, we need a J on the jack.
All right.
And I think, is there anything else that we haven't covered, like to say, or?
No, I know there will be. As soon as I come off here, I'll be thinking. No, I think we've fairly well covered everything. I could talk all day just but I don't want to go into too much detail and bore you with it. So it's but it's interesting stuff. It really is.
The joy is you can always revisit us. So when you've got something new happening,
no, that'll be good.
And just to come back and refresh people's memories, because we're guilty of it. Something, while it's there in your life, is it's very usable, very tangible, and then if you've not needed it for a while, or to say somebody may be watching this and it's not pertinent, so they haven't followed it through to the end, and things change, we can then refresh, get back up there. So if ever you're, you know, thinking, okay, I can tell Wendy about this, let's get on to that Talking Cafe. CCS can out there what's happening, what's changed, and how we can help more.
Yeah, no, that'd be great, Wendy. Lovely.
So thank you very, very much. It's been lovely talking to you.
You're welcome.
I'm fascinated, and we could talk for hours, as we discovered the other day. Introduced ourselves. And I do look forward to seeing you again. Okay.
Lovely. Thanks, Wendy.
So thank you very much. And that just leaves me now to say thank you for watching. And next week, it's going to be my colleague, Kath, who's doing Talking Cafe. And she is going to be joined by Rebecca Vincent, and they're going to talk about nutrition. So please do tune in 11 o'clock next Friday. And also watch this space, because the Talking Cafes are going to change now as we're gradually coming out, as are the times. It will be well publicised, and it's going to be Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, I believe at 1 o'clock. As I say, there will be plenty of notice, and I'm sure Kath will remind you all again next week. And until I next come on, thank you very much. Goodbye.